Hi everybody, my name is Chef Cleva and I am a little curious. Today we're going to be talking about Boston Cream Pie, and fun fact, in 1996 the Boston Cream Pie became the official dessert of Massachusetts. So this funny thing is the Boston Cream Pie is not actually a pie, it is actually a cake composed of 3 parts. You have your filling, which we're going to do next, our cake, and then lastly our chocolate topping. So what we have in front of us, we're basically going to make a custard. So you have we're going to turn this into 2 egg yolks. We're going to separate these and I'll get to that in a minute. Then we have our 1½ cup of milk, 1/3 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So now with our eggs, we're going to separate them because all we need are the yolks. So we're going to do that real quick. If you don't have an egg separator, that's fine. You can actually use your hand. So you're going to do is gently crack the egg, separate the yolk from the white, and keep everybody separate, unfortunately. You have to be very careful because you don't want the yolk to bleed into the white. Alright. Now, one might say, Chef Cleva, what am I going to do with these egg whites? So we're going to save these, and actually in a future video I'm going to show what you can do with fresh egg whites. But for right now we're going to concentrate on the yolk. Just going to put you off to the side for now, sorry. Change your gloves. So the filling actually is a custard and it's going to be made on the stove. So for right now what you're going to do is we're going to put our milk, sugar, cornstarch, vanilla, and salt in a pot, and then we're going to get going on the stove. So I'm just going to put this here for 1 second. So here we go. Ready? So you have your milk, your sugar, cornstarch, vanilla, and salt. Alright, so we're going to whisk this together right here. And then we're going to move over to the stove. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep stirring this, because what we want is the milk to heat up, the whole milk mixture to heat up actually, and we want the sugar that's in here to start to melt. Now what's going to happen is the cornstarch is going to also help thicken everything once the egg yolks get in here. So once everything is starting to get a good stir, we're going to take our yolks, we're just going to break them up. So now you don't want to put the yolks straight away in without stirring it, because you risk cooking the egg yolk before it's supposed to be cooked. You want everything to blend together properly, because if the yolks literally just go straight in, you're going to kind of have a scrambled egg custard situation, and nobody wants that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, while we're stirring it, because keep it moving. If you don't keep it moving, that's when the egg sits in the hot milk too long, and that's when it starts to become scrambled eggs, basically. So while you're stirring it, you're going to pour the yolk in slowly. A little bit at a time, to give the egg time to basically join forces with your milk sugar mixture. That's the best way to describe it. So now once you see it's blending together, also it doesn't hurt to stir it one way and then stir it the other way. Alright, just with this recipe, the filling of our Boston cream pie, you need it to get thicker. So that's what the egg yolk and the cornstarch are going to do while the milk sugar mixture is cooking. So now what you're looking for is for the mixture to start to get thicker. And then every so often you can stop stirring just to make sure that nice froth on the top, everything is coming together great. So, one cool fun fact about the Boston cream pie, the reason why it's called Boston cream pie is because when it was created in the late 1800s, pie tins and cake tins were interchangeable. So something that was a pie was called a cake sometimes, something that was a cake was called a pie. But funny enough, there is a recipe called Boston cream cake, but it's not a cake. It's actually like a cream puff situation. So considering that at one point they did use pie tins to make this recipe, that's how you get Boston cream pie. So now if you're wondering, is this getting thicker? Is something happening? Am I stirring this for no reason? Your answer is actually right in front of you, because you'll start to see the mixture starting to stick to the sides a little bit. That's showing that it's getting thicker. You can stop stirring a little bit to give it a chance to kind of boil, but don't let it sit for too long, because then the custard will actually burn. Because on the bottom, even though the top is frothy, the bottom is hitting that direct heat, so the bottom is still cooking. And a pretty funny fun fact about myself is in culinary school, we had to make a custard similar to this for our final. And I will say this, hopefully they don't take my degree back. Me and about 5 other students definitely burnt our custard. But while our teacher was in the bathroom, we quickly all made new ones for our final. I mean, it's not cheating. We still made it. We just made it after we burnt the first one, that's all. As you can see, the color is becoming more and more yellow, because that egg, sugar, milk is coming together nicely. So now, Boston cream pie was actually, when it was invented by a French chef. But it's kind of funny because when you look up the information, there are 2 names, but it's the same chef. But they're giving the chef 2 names for some reason. But it was created by the same person in a hotel in Boston. Sorry for the splash. That froth is actually a good sign, so don't get nervous about it. Just break through it and keep stirring. So now usually, if you wanted to multitask, you definitely could, because as you can see, you're going to be stirring, sitting here in front of the stove stirring for a bit of time. But if you don't feel comfortable multitasking with this, that's perfectly fine. There's no need to rush. There's no need to go through any fast steps. You can take your time with this, because like I said, this cake is a 3-part cake. So now, another thing about the Boston cream pie, another cool fun fact is the hotel that this cake was invented in is pretty much like a monument in Massachusetts, because it was the first hotel to have hot and cold running water and the first hotel to have a working elevator. Which, when you think about it, in the late 1800s, that was pretty much like a huge deal. Alright, so as you can see, it's thickened up real nice. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put this to the side so it can get nice and cold before we put it for our cake. Alright? Alright guys, so now the next part, we're going to make our cake. So for the Boston Cream Pie cake, here are your ingredients. You have 1.5 cups of cake flour, you have 1 cup of sugar, you have 3/4 cup of milk, you have 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, you have 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then you also have 1/2 cup of unsalted butter and 1 egg. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a hand mixer this time because not everyone unfortunately has a stand mixer. But hand mixers, you can find them anywhere from grocery stores to your local discount store. And we're going to do it in this bowl right here, and we're going to start with the creaming method. So what we do is we put the butter in first with our sugar. Don't forget, don't leave anything behind. Alright, and we're going to start off by blending these together. Okay, you're going to put it on a low speed because you don't want everything to just fly all over the place. Now once everything comes together, you're going to add your egg. Just want to make sure that all the butter has been broken up and is covered in the sugar. So needless to say, do not put an entire stick of butter in and expect it to be broken up. Pre-break your butter. Alright. Now once everything is starting to crumble together like this, turn this off, and you'll put your egg in. Alright, low speed. So, I have seen the comments, and I will say this. This is a recipe you can actually substitute some things to make it diabetic friendly. So since the base of your Boston cream pie is essentially a sponge cake, you can use sugar-free box cake as your base. Now what you're looking for here at the creaming method is basically the name. The method is in the title, how everything is coming together in a nice cream form. Alright, so now as you can see, everything has creamed together, and as I said before, if you really want to switch things out to make this more diabetic friendly, you can use a diabetic sugar-free box cake as your base instead of this from scratch cake. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some of our dry ingredients in. We're going to put our salt and our baking powder. Alright. I'm just going to whisk everybody together because you don't want clumps of one thing and clumps of another thing and another thing. You want everybody to blend together nice and neat. Okay. And you have your milk here, and we're going to add our vanilla to the milk so that all of our wet and all of our dry is together. Cool. Okay, so because of the creaming method, what we're going to do is we're going to alternate. We're going to add some dry, some wet, dry, wet, until everything has come together. So we're going to start off with the dry, just a little bit. Mix it together. Low speed setting, like I said, you don't want it to fly all over the place. Now because of the milk, you don't want to slosh everywhere. If you can pour it a little bit as you're mixing, but if you're not comfortable, you can stop the mixer and just go a little bit at a time. So a little, whoop. What you're gonna do is, since the milk is in the middle, you're gonna move everything towards the middle, like so. Alright, so I'm gonna continue the wet and the dry until everything is all mixed together. Put it off to the side, so as you can see, it's going to pull it into the blades. And last is your wet. Now, whether it is a hand mixer or it is a stand mixer, I still am scraped down clean. So, because you want to make sure you get every single bit. You don't want any dry bits. You don't want any overly wet bits. Okay. Okay. Pause. Oh, sorry about that. As you can see, everything has come together nicely. So the next step, we're going to leave this here and we're going to put it into our cake pan. Alright. So I have an 8-inch cake pan here and a pre-cut circle, parchment circle. Now usually you need about 2. You can put it in 1, but if you have 2, it will definitely cook a lot faster. Give a little spray, parchment paper down. Okay. And I'm just going to pour it into our pan. This is going to go into the oven at 350 for about 40 minutes or until it's nice and golden and the inside does not come out wet when you put a toothpick or a thin knife in it. Alright, cool. Can't put it in the oven like this, so we're going to smooth it out to even everything out. Alright, cool beans. Well. Alright, so it's going to go in the oven, 325, 40 minutes or until the top is golden and the stick comes out clean. Alright, cool. Into the oven we go. Alright, and I'll see you guys in 40 minutes. Alright guys, it's been about 40 minutes. Let's check out our cake, see what's going on. Okay. Oh, I messed up those. Okay. Alright, so we got our nice color. Crack on the top is cool, don't worry. And we're gonna see what's going on the inside. So, alright, clean, good to go. So we're gonna let this cool, and then next we're gonna move on to our topping. Hi guys, so this is part 3 of our Boston cream pie. So what we're gonna need is our topping. So the topping is actually a chocolate ganache. And with chocolate ganache, it is basically equal parts heavy cream and equal parts semi-sweet chocolate. So right here, we have our 8 ounces of heavy cream, and then we have 8 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. What you're gonna do is you're gonna pour the heavy cream into a pot, and you're gonna get it onto the stove until it gives you like a rolling boil. And then we're gonna add it to our semi-sweet chocolate. Okay, so I'm gonna head over to the stove. Oh, this one. All right, and we're gonna let it sit on the stove until it begins to boil, but not too much till it will separate. But as soon as you see that rolling boil, then we're gonna pour it right onto our chocolate chips. So while we're waiting for this, we're just gonna add our chocolate chips to this bowl. You'll see why. All right, cool. Right now the outside is boiling. You want the whole thing. So basically think of a rolling boil like waves at the beach. You want the boil to just keep going in waves throughout the whole pot. So you see that? It's almost there. So now you want your heavy cream to be piping hot. And you're gonna see in a little bit why. Now as you can see, you see that nice boil is coming to the front like a wave. So now once it starts doing all that activity, you're gonna move it right to your semi-sweet chocolate. Right? And then you're gonna mix it in. And that is how you make ganache. So now what's gonna happen is it's gonna melt this chocolate and it's gonna create like a sauce. And then once it cools, you have to do it while it's hot, because once it starts to get cold, it starts to thicken, and then whatever chunks and lumps you have in there is unfortunately going to stay there until you reheat it. So look, as you can see, it's starting to come together. It's going to create a nice smooth gloss. Now you don't want to just do in the center, you got to get all around it. And you got to move kind of quick because you want to make sure you get all the chips. Alright. See, as you can tell, the way you can tell it's thickening up is because when you're moving your whisk through the ganache, you can see the ribboning, ribbon design. There you go. So you can kind of see it, how it's leaving a little trail behind with the whisk, because it's starting to cool down and it's starting to thicken up. So now this is way too hot to put on top of our cake, so you want to give it a little chance to cool off, because you want the topping on your Boston cream pie to be nice and neat. Alright, so your ganache is all together, so we're going to give it a little minute to cool down a bit more, and then we're going to assemble our cake, and we're going to have something amazing to put together. right, guys, so we have all 3 parts. We have our cake, we have our filling, and we have our topping, which is our chocolate ganache. So now we're gonna put everything together. So I'm just gonna loosen this up. Okay, cool. So what we're gonna do is so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut this top off just to level it out, basically. You take a serrated knife, and level it out. Okay. Nice crumb. This is really nice. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it in the center. So I'm just gonna grab my, they call it a lazy Susan. I don't know why. I should probably look that up. Just so I can maneuver better. I don't need this anymore. Okay. Serrated knife. What you're gonna do for cutting a cake, you're gonna hold your hand on the top. Just keep everything steady. Like that. So start in the center. And just rotate. Okay, dokie. Push through. Cool. So then we're gonna separate the 2 layers. And we're gonna put our filling in the center here. So now, like I said before, this cake actually has the potential to be diabetic friendly. So since this custard is essentially a vanilla pudding, you could swap it out for sugar-free vanilla pudding and then have the cake also be sugar-free, which will pretty much help with your diabetic friendly diet. Put a little on the center. Just want to smooth this out. Now I have an offset spatula, but you can use a butter knife if you don't have one. You just want the coating to be nice and even. Think of a filling for the Boston cream donuts that you would get. This is basically the same stuff. Okay, so you don't want to put it too close to the edge, because what's going to happen is when we put the top layer on top, the weight from the top layer of the cake is going to smush everything outward. Okay, just a little bit more, but you still want to be able to taste it. Okay. Alright, now everything's nice and even. I'm going to put this top layer on top. Okay. Cool beans. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pour our topping around top. This has cooled down enough, so we can just pour it just a little. Okay, you're going to go a little bit at a time. You don't want to overwhelm your cake topping. And just move it out to the sides gently. Okay, now this one you can go to the edge. All right. Cool. And that, everybody, is your Boston cream pie, which is actually a cake. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share.